So polymerization is really just a fancy term for the glue drying or the glue curing. And we'll talk in a little bit more detail than you learned in your classic course on what the process of polymerization is. What you have to remember is that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And there's so many parts of the polymerization process that make up how effective the drying and the curing process is going to be. And that's what I really want you to understand with this. So when we're talking about this chain here, we're talking about the bond, right? And the bond of the adhesive to the natural lash, it's not only impacted by the strength and the quality of the adhesive that you're using and the ingredients in it, but it's also impacted by the steps that you take as a lash pro to prep the natural lashes to make sure that it is the perfect environment for your adhesive to perform at its best. And it's also impacted by factors out of your control, like the environment and like your client's lifestyle and your client's natural lashes themselves. So we'll go into all of that. But before we do, it's important to understand a little bit of science. So bear with me, we're going to geek out for just a moment here, and we're going to go into a little bit of the science that goes into what this is. Some of these words sound big and they're not, so please just take this for what it is. But if you take anything from this, I really just want you to understand that there is a process here and there is some science going on behind your adhesive. And what makes this cool is that it's totally within your control to set up your adhesive in a situation and an environment and to use it in a way that it's working best for you so that it will help you with your speed lashing and it will help get you the maximum retention that you're looking for. So what's a monomer? A monomer, let's look at these little green balls over here and all of these little individual molecules. These are tiny little free floating molecules, and when they join together, they create a polymer. When they join together, a monomer creates a polymer. That's polymerization. So what we're doing is we're basically, as lash artists, we're counting on the process that is taking these monomers, these little individual molecules, and we're counting on the process that's going on over here where this green is. And this process here is what we're really working to understand and create ideal circumstances for, so that this process is going to be maximized so that our glue is going to work the best for us. And we're turning these little monomers into polymers. When the lash adhesive itself is not dry or it's not cured or it's not polymerized, what's going on is it's in a liquid state. Right? When you take the eyelash extension adhesive and you drop it onto your jade stone, it's in a liquid state. It's not yet formed a polymer. So as it dries, these bonds are being created that you can see in the blue, and the strength of that bond is what determines the efficiency of the glue working and also how long it lasts for. So here's another better image here. And what you need to know with cyanoacrylate is that cyanoacrylate or acrylic resin, the glue that we're using, anytime you add water, so water added to any of these individual little balls that you see here is going to start the process of polymerization, aka drying the glue, okay? So when you add water to the cyanoacrylate, you are starting the process of joining all of these little balls together, and that's what makes your liquid adhesive turn into that thermoplastic, right? That hardened but flexible and waterproof bond that you're creating on the eyelash extension adhesive itself. So polymerization is basically taking all of these little monomers that are floating around in a liquid state. You're adding water, and when the water is added, when the adhesive is exposed to any sort of moisture, so whether it's in the air, whether it's on the surface of the natural lash, those bonds come in and they create a solid, and that's the polymer, okay? So all you need to know is that as the glue starts to dry, it's going to be drying from pulling moisture from the air. It's also going to be drying from things that you're doing at the end of the appointment, like nano misting, and giving your client a lash bath, and that's what's going to solidify the adhesive. And the tighter those bonds are and the better that they're cured and the more properly they're cured, the longer they're going to last and the better they're going to work for your client. And there's a bunch of different factors that we're going to go into as to how we can maximize the tightness of that bond and the efficiency of the glue that you're using. So the easiest way to think about it is it's kind of like a Lego, right? So when you understand all the factors that are influencing the polymerization process, then you're able to actually go in and make sure that you're creating an optimal bond and you're putting all those Lego pieces together snugly and tightly so they're going to stay put and they're going to stay nice and tight and they're not loose and they're not going to create instability throughout everything else that you're building. As all these Lego pieces are stacking piece on piece, if you have a couple pieces that are incorrectly applied or they're loose or they're crooked, it's going to impact everything, right? And that's why as a lash artist, it's so important to know all of this so that you can make sure that each little molecule, aka Lego piece, is tightly and perfectly joined together. And you can do this through several different ways that we're going to go into. The polymerization process, it's a chemical process, and what it's doing is it's bonding all of these little molecules to form a larger structure, right? Just like Lego. We don't need to overcomplicate it. So when the monomers react together, what they do is they form the polymer and they form the bond, right? The strength of the bond is directly related to the strength of the polymers. So what that means is how long your client's glue is going to hold the retention is going to be impacted by how strong this bond is. Also, how fast the adhesive is drying or how fast the polymerization process is also impacted by other factors throughout this process. So factors that can affect your speed and your strength and the quality of the adhesive bond include things like you already know, temperature, humidity, and the porosity of the natural lash. So there's things that we can do that we've learned about in our classic lash training about how we can achieve perfect conditions for all of these factors. And then there's other things that we can do on top of that because I totally understand that we're all lashing in different areas, different climates, different environments, different spaces. We're also dealing with clients with completely different factors that they're bringing to the table. So there's ways that we can use other products and other sources of information so that we can make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success to have the best, tightest, most perfect fitting bond between all of these monomers or Lego pieces so that we have the strongest finalized product, right? With optimal conditions, what you need to know is that adhesive can last 8 weeks. Retention is totally possible for it to be 8 weeks. Really at the end of the day, if you're doing all of these things perfectly that we're going to go through in this whole course, your retention will be 8 weeks. The thing is, your client's lashes and their lash cycle is 3 to 4 weeks. So the goal of an objective of you as a lash pro is to make sure that your retention is lasting longer than their lash cycle, right? Because their lashes are going to be shedding, which is why they're coming in for fills. But in a perfect world, if their lashes weren't shedding and you had applied and done every single part of this process perfectly and created a perfect polymer and a perfectly cured adhesive, then this would last up to 8 weeks. So factors affecting the speed and the longevity of the polymerization. So AKA how long the glue is going to last or the retention of the bond itself. These are things we know and we're going to dive into them into further depth. So humidity, higher humidity levels are going to speed up the process because there's more moisture available, right? So the more moisture, the faster your glue dries, right? If there's too much humidity, it's going to lead to actually weaker bonds and weaker retention because it's actually going to be going too fast. Temperature is also going to affect how your glue dries and how long it lasts. If your temperature is too high, your glue is going to dry faster. If your temperature is too low, it's going to dry slower. Optimal temperature ranges are going to vary based off of the adhesive formulation itself, but also the conditions of the natural lash and what you've done to prepare it. The other thing that affects the speed and the retention of your adhesive is the surface preparation. So properly cleaning and priming the natural lashes to remove oil and debris ensures a better bonding and a faster polymerization process. don't skip the surface preparation. So this includes your lash bath and your primer, and we will go into the ingredients and the pH and all of that in further modules in this course as we talk about how the surface preparation is affected by the different products that you're using and why it's so important. So the actual process itself, it requires a catalyst. Okay, what's the catalyst? I'm quizzing you right now. Has anybody been listening? The catalyst is the moisture, right? So it is H2O, and this is coming from air or the surface on the natural lashes, okay? And this is gonna come from humidity in the air. It's also gonna come from nanomisting or from the lash bath at the end of the appointment, okay? The other thing that I want you to remember, and I am gonna hit this point home several times throughout this program, is that washing the lashes after the application is going to remove any residual adhesive fumes. If a lash adhesive is not fully cured or polymerized, it's going to continue to release fumes. This is going to cause irritation. This is going to cause sensitivities for your client. It's also going to allow them to leave your service without the adhesive being fully cured. And this is going to cause a problem because it could take, depending on where you are, it could take 1 to 3 days for the moisture from the air to fully cure the lash extensions. And by then, the bond has already been created, or the bond has already allowed for other factors to influence it, right? There's debris, there's other environmental factors that are affecting it, temperature, things like that. So the lash bath at the end is something that you don't want to skip. When you understand how this process works and all the factors that go into it, you have the power to create stronger, longer lasting bonds and achieve faster and better results for your clients, which is our end goal. If the polymerization process is not complete, there's a few things that are going to happen, and that's going to affect the longevity of the lash extensions or your retention, okay? So if you don't allow for the proper drying and polymerization to occur, you're going to experience a weak bond, and that means that she's going to have poor retention. You're going to see allergic reactions and irritations potentially, and this will happen when the adhesive is not fully cured because, like we talked about, any residual monomers that have not been turned into a polymer are going to remain in the adhesive, and those monomers are what's giving off fumes. So when those little guys are bouncing around and they're still moving around, they're free floating and they're creating fumes that are going to cause irritation that your client may experience immediately after the appointment or even within the next couple days. So if you've ever gotten that text message with that photo of her eyes a couple days or a couple hours later, it's probably because, or it could be because, i.e. allergic reaction, but an irritation could have been caused because it's still emitting fumes, okay? You're going to see increased fumes and odors, and that could just cause discomfort, but you're also going to see compromised flexibility, okay? So if the polymerization process is not complete, the bond may not reach its optimal flexibility. When you're using a premium lash adhesive like our Fix Pro and our Fixated, we have the flexors inside of the adhesive, and we have ingredients that are doing that. And the adhesive has been formulated to have those flexors in there and the Flexi Bond to create that natural feeling on the lash. So when a client's sleeping and she's getting bumped on her lashes, she's touching her lashes, she's hugging someone and she gets pressed up against their chest, the Flexi Bond inside the lash adhesives, especially in the Fix Pro and the Fixated, it's going to help to make sure that there's the flexion there so it doesn't just crack and fall off. If you don't complete the polymerization process fully by nanomisting and washing at the end of the appointment, then you're losing the benefits of the Flexi Bond, and you're gonna therefore decrease retention, and it's not gonna be as comfortable for your client as well.